Hello everyone, welcome to the Balaji Aviation Academy. My name is Praveen and today we are going to talk about customer service, and it is the most important part for cabin crew, for air hostess, for flight steward, the duties and the responsibilities. So let's see the docket today. We are going to cover the cabin crew duties for the passenger service. Now also talk about passenger service on ground after takeoff. We will also understand the kitchen of galley. Galley is known as a kitchen. We also cover in-flight catering. We also talk about meal services, beverage services, and the trash collection. So let's see the primary and the secondary role for the cabin crew. Well, there are two roles for the cabin crew. One is the primary role and the other is secondary role. So let's understand what they are. The primary role for the cabin crew is the most important role to making sure that the safety of the passenger always kept in mind. Well, friends, the secondary role for the cabin crew is to make sure that the comfort of the passenger. The cabin crew are the face of any particular airlines. They are the brand ambassadors of. So they are expected to excel in the customer service, and they are always remain friendly even they are handling such kind of irritating or disturbed passengers. So you always need to have a smile on your face while handling these kind of such passengers. So friends, let's talk about certain typical work duties for the passenger service, and that happens before takeoff and after takeoff. So the cabin crew, when she joins any particular airlines, so during the initial period of training, so she'll be going under 1 month training only on passenger service. So the reason being that she'll be understanding how to serve a particular passengers, how to remove tray from the passengers as well, and how to do tea and coffee services. So that is the very extensive amount of training. So now let's understand what are catering. So that is the very important for every airlines, because that is where the food basically comes from the passengers. The plain food, in-flight meal is meal basically served to the passengers. The cargo defense services and have a catering services that is the only for commercial flight. So these meals are prepared by the specialist airlines, catering services. Now each airlines has their own requirement and standards, and they basically set their vendors who basically does catering services to the particular airlines. So these vendors has been working for long period of time. Friends, certain things always kept in mind in terms of duties of the passenger service. Certain logistics for the catering requirement, material demand forecasting, equipment sector, sourcing of product, and what kind of basically food you require, containing suppliers who is going to give you that kind of a catering services, transportation of stocks, how it is transferred to the food for any particular dedicated airlines, warehousing of stocks. Well, it is important that whenever the food is coming for particular airlines, has to be warehouses which is stocking all these meals before it goes into any particular dedicated aircraft or a airline. Friends, let's talk about airlines caterer contractors. The consistency of food product, if any caterer who is giving such services to any airlines, so the airlines has a mandatory requirement that they need to make sure that the food quality is really consistent. Food which requires are offered on consistency basis. Now talking about accuracy of uplifting. If airlines require, for example, 250 meals on particular flight, and out of which 200 meals are vegetarians and the 50 meals are non-vegetarians meals. So the airline's caterer has to be very make sure that he's uplifting the accurate number of meals which require, so that there should not be any problem on the particular flight. Every passenger has to get their proper meal. So let's talk about on-time delivery. For example, if any airlines is supposed to take off around 8 o'clock in the morning from Mumbai to Delhi, so the caterer has to be reported or present at before 1 hour. So there should not be any kind of a problem before the flight takeoff. Friends, value for money. So the caterer makes sure that they are packaging the parcel for the passenger which has to good value for money. the food has to be very hygiene and fresh. Overall operational performance has to be good for any particular airlines. If the caterer is not good, so as per the consistency services, it can be delayed. So the aircraft which can be amounting to huge for any particular airlines. Passenger on ground. Well, let's talk about passenger service on ground. Well, the passenger service on ground, it is important that whenever the passengers comes inside the aircraft for boarding, so the crew member has to be welcome him and helping him with his particular seats. When the passengers get his seat, so he might require some water or some pillow or newspaper, so he'll be calling that particular button. So whenever any kind of such requirement, so crew has to be fulfill their expectations if it is possible to do so. So service on ground refreshment, it is important so that the first class passenger or business class passengers, they are always given hot towels or cold towels, also given some refreshments like juices. These are such duties for on ground services. So friends, let's talk about the duties and the responsibility of crew member after takeoff. So from the very outset, after takeoff, the crew member will go to the tent to the cockpit crew to ask tea and coffee services, and rest crew members will be setting up their carts to distribute the meal services to the passengers. And this is totally depend on the time when the aircraft flies, if it is breakfast time, lunch time or dinner time. So in the meanwhile time, so other crew member in the front and in the aft of the aircraft to prepare these trolleys for the meal services. So friends, let's talk about rolling out of the carts into the cabin. The first cart always start from first row and the second cart start from middle of the cabin. And always make sure that the serving to the passengers, it has to be from window to aisle, and the collection of trays always comes from aisle to window. So this is how it goes to. Two of the crew member will then take a walk to the cabin to find out all the passengers has received their meal or not. So it is very make sure that every passenger has to be served. So friends, let's talk about meal services. For the meal services, it is very important to serve a tray in a presentable manner, and while serving that particular passenger, you should have a smile on your face and always ask for the choices and the preferences. So meal services are important in the cabin because during that particular time it take maximum number of time during that cruise level. So it is important not allow any passengers to go out from their seats, and don't use lavatory because it can create little havoc. So friends, let's talk about tea coffee services. Well, after meal services happen, you need to serve tea and coffee also. So inside the cabin, the first row will be getting tea or coffee, whosoever the cabin crew is serving there. For example, if a particular cabin crew has starting serving with the tea or coffee, after she proceed the tea fourth row, then the next cabin crew is supposed to start coffee. She needs to make sure that the fourth row are at least completed before she starts the coffee serving. So similarly to the next, or rather aft of the aircraft, from the 15th row, one crew member starts serving to the coffee. After she finished about 4th row in the cabin, the second cabin crew member from the left or out will start. They will always serve left, right side of the cabin. So friends, let's talk about galley is the part of aircraft. Well, as we have discussed earlier that galley is the part of kitchen, and this is the place where all the food and beverages is being stored. So let's talk about galley in the aircraft. Galley on the aircraft is typically not only facility to serve and store food and beverages, but also containing flight attendant jump seats. As you can see, the jump seats where the cabin crew members need to sit. Emergency equipment also being stored, as well as anything else the flight attendant may need to during that particular flight. So while not only the food storage but also jump seats, so certain emergency equipment also kept inside galley. So friends, let's talk about galley contents. So what's there in the galley, let's see. Electrical appliances are there in the galley, and there are trolleys which are used to rolling out inside the cabin for the meal services. So there are food carts. So inside the food carts we have runners. So inside the runners you can store up to 4 trays, two at the front side and two at the back side. And also we have beverages maker, which has the tea and coffee inside the galley. So you have hot water tunnel from where you can get tea and coffee. And also there is a water heater where the water heater needs to be switched off after take off the flight, so that tea and coffee piping for the services. So friends, we have some more contents inside the galley. So inside the galley we have chillers, and it is always make sure that you are serving cold beverages. If there is a juices or a cold drink services, you need to make sure that they are cold. Hence these are the things always kept inside the chillers. And you have a water supply, hot and cold. And the trash compartment, which is the kind of a cart which is removing by the cabin crew to throw the garbage as well as some dirty things. And also we have a water supply system for the cabin crew only, and screen curtains are there which is for the cockpit, so the passengers cannot see inside the cockpit. So friends, let's talk about more information about galley. The considerable amount electrical phases, so all the appliances or switches are there inside the galley, so which has the main power. In case the oven are overheated or too much power, it automatically switch off. So in case of any current required, there is a completely switch off in the galley. So all the system have control switches are located close to the galley. So the master isolated switch for the both electrical and water supply is also there. So please understand, galley is having lot of electrical appliances, hence crew has to be very extremely careful when they are using all these appliances. So they should not be overheated for the galley, and the main power always goes switch off. So friends, let's understand how important the feedback from by the passenger to any particular airlines. So it is very important part for the protocol with the cabin crew needs to follow. When they give that particular feedback form after the post meal services is done and the trash collection is clear. Now the crew member will take a walk into the cabin and distribute all these feedback form to the passengers, and either it can be positive or negative feedback. So the flight crew will collect all these feedbacks, and these are submitted to any particular airline's HR department, and they basically find out how they can basically improvise their services. The main agenda is to provide perfect services for any particular airlines. That is possible only by the feedback.